Xu Fei is a university student, pursuing his education despite having no hopes for a bright future. While there, he ends up tangled in a love triangle of sorts involving himself, Chu Jian, a rich heiress, and Gao Yang, her fiancé. Little does he know, Gao Yang's threats and Chu Jian's advances will soon be the least of Xu Fei's problems. Following a fatal fall, he finds himself in a whole new world, one where he finds himself surrounded by politics, powerful individuals, and threatening forces. Xu Fei is a completely average university student with no special qualities whatsoever. The girl he looks up to, on the other hand, Chu Jian, is a completely different story. From athletics to academics and popularity, she excels in everything she does. Coming from a prestigious family, she'll be recruited into the family business after graduating and have an incredibly life. In comparison, Xu Fei will probably work in a dead-end 9-to-5 job. His entire life already seems planned, and it doesn't look the least bit exciting. However, there's one thing that opposes this worldview of Xu Fei's. Chu Jian has feelings for him. Xu Fei, though he believes himself unremarkable, displays a large amount of selflessness and chivalry. He believes that Chu Jian deserves a much better life than what he can give her. How can he possibly feel worthy of such an amazing person? Though his doubts are misguided, they truly do come from the best of intentions. Due to this, he decides to avoid Chu Jian. One day, she finally confronts him and asks if his behavior is because of her confession a week ago. After only a few weeks of knowing each other, Chu Jian put on an extremely over-the-top show to confess her feelings for Xu Fei. This results in many people gossiping about her. Meanwhile, her friend came up to her and questioned why she would put herself in this situation. The night of Chu Jian's confession, her friend tries to discourage her by mentioning Xu Fei being surrounded by other girls. This only makes her resolve further strengthen, and the girl yells out that she likes Xu Fei. Up in his dorm, she was teased by his two roommates mercilessly. At first, this is out of happiness for him, but it soon turns to outrage. Even though Chu Jian is down there declaring her love for him, he ignores her, as his friends grill him about how he can act this way. Xu Fei himself feels guilty too. He knows Chu Jian must feel embarrassed yelling out her feelings with no response. However, he can't accept her feelings. He can't be with her. After all, he's just not the right guy for her. This is when the true reason for Xu Fei's doubts is finally revealed. In a flashback within this flashback, Xu Fei is seen meeting another student. Senior student, Gao Yang, president of the student council, handsome, well-liked, and from a prestigious family. He confronted Xu Fei previously in the library regarding his friendship with Chu Jian. Gao claims to be her future husband. The elders of their families engaged them long ago. Chu Jian is simply refusing to go along with it. With his higher position on the social ladder, he tries to pressure Xu Fei into backing off from Chu Jian. He, however, states that he'll of course support them, but only if Chu Jian truly likes him too. Hearing Xu say this, Gao Yang is infuriated. He tells Xu that Chu Jian is no ordinary pretty girl. With how vast her family's wealth and business it is, any husband of hers must be capable of handling that business. She is the heiress of the Xia family. She can't afford to base her future simply on something as shallow as liking someone. Before they part ways, Gao puts forth one last threat. If he tries to be with her, she may well just end up dead. Back to the present. Chu Jian finds Xu on campus and confesses yet again. She has decided to keep offering her love until he finally accepts her. She doesn't intend to pressure him in any way, but won't give up either. After leaving her, Xu runs into Gao Yang and his friends. Having seen him talking to Chu, he gets mad at the boy. Xu tries to affirm yet again that there isn't anything between him and Chu. He can't afford to let them think they're together after Gao's last threat. Unfortunately, Gao Yang is blinded by his jealousy. With a mighty punch across the face, he knocks Xu back. Gao declares he'll show Xu that trash like him can't touch someone like Chu. As he beats Xu up, the boy is pushed through the fence of the roof they're on and falls off. After a massive fall, Chu is surprised to find that he is completely fine. No injuries of any sort whatsoever. Strangely enough though, he's now in some strange forest. On top of that, the area he's in is surrounded by a growth of reishi mushrooms. These are a rare medicinal material that Xu is surprised to find in such large numbers. As he examines the mushrooms, a lady passes by with her young daughter, both in ancient-looking clothes. Looking at Xu, the child asks why he's so fascinated by the poisonous mushrooms. The mother simply tells her child he's probably gone mad like many scholars do after failing their yearly exams. As they walk away, Xu rechecks the mushrooms and is certain these are the medicinal reishi mushrooms he has studied about. He can't imagine why the lady and her child called them poisonous, but more importantly, he notices their clothing. Putting that together with his arrival in this strange place, Xu concludes that he has traveled to another world. After this realization, he wonders if this means he has some unknown superpower. He doesn't feel any different though, which is certainly strange. Before he can ponder any further, an injured horse comes barreling his way from the forest. Before it can hit him, the horse collapses. A beautiful red-haired woman falls off the horse and lays unconscious on the ground. As he approaches, Xu wonders if this is some sort of scam to ambush and rob him. Despite his concerns of this situation being a scam, Xu can't help but worry that the woman may actually be hurt. Going towards her, he finds her chest pierced by an arrow. Thankfully, it isn't too deep, but he decides to pull it out in case it's poisoned. The faster he removes it, the less poison should spread through her body if it is the case. Shockingly, when he pulls the arrow out of her, a golden light shines forth from the woman's wound. A butterfly forms from this light and plants itself on Xu's body before disappearing. Later, Xu can be seen tending to the unconscious woman by a campfire at night. He's used whatever he could find nearby and on his person to clean her wound and stabilize her condition. When she finally awakens, the woman calls out for water. Bringing her some, Xu Fei says that the beautiful lady has finally woken up. This seems to irritate the woman as she pulls a face. As she becomes more aware of her surroundings, Xu continues to flirt with the woman. Eventually, she draws a sword and turns to attack the man that saved her. As Xu Fei dodges her slashes, he falls to the ground, afraid for his life. He yells out that the woman is being very ungrateful to someone who just saved her life. When the woman realizes that Xu is the one who has helped her heal, she stands down. As thanks for his assistance, she offers to repay him. She'll give him anything he wants. Xu Fei decides to joke around and asks her to help him become the emperor of the world. However, he's surprised when she gets offended and asks him if he's a rebel. Quickly apologizing, he tells her he was just kidding. Remembering that he needs to figure out where he is, he asks the woman about their location. She tells him they're in the Great Yan Kingdom of the North Continent. This confirms to Xu that he is no longer on his own Earth. The woman introduces herself as Huangfu Shengnan of the Huangfu family. She is a Marquess and her family is ranked the third among the top 3 of all the lands, since she comes from a prestigious and wealthy background. Xu decides he doesn't need to hold back and starts thinking of what he can ask for. While he does this, Shengnan realizes the breastplate of her armor is missing. Turning to Xu, she asks if he's the one who removed it. When he confirms this, she flies into a rage once again, attacking Xu. As the boy flees from her, he yells in outrage. How can she try to kill him when he only did what he did to heal her wound? This snaps her out of her rage and calms Shengnan down, admitting to being in the army for the past 8 years. She apologizes for her actions. After her apology, Xu finds himself confused as to why she's so mad in the first place. Shengnan tells him that the women of the Huangfu family are all born with a phoenix-shaped birthmark. When a non-blood-related man touches this birthmark, it disappears. Xu realizes that must be what the golden light was when he pulled the arrow out of her chest. Shengnan tells him that when a man causes the birthmark to disappear, he must marry that woman. While Xu admits Shengnan is a beautiful woman, he can't help but dislike the idea of marrying such a violent woman. He asks her if there's any way around this rule. Claiming he feels unworthy of her, Shengnan tells him the only way to avoid the marriage is to kill the man who touched the birthmark. With his death, it will reappear. Obviously not wanting to die, Xu agrees to marry her. Shengnan then puts forth an extra condition. Xu must be adopted into her family as well. The women of the Huangfu family don't just marry anyone after all. Once Xu agrees to this condition, though he does attempt to get out of it at first, Shengnan states that he is her man from now on, as long as he lives up to the Huangfu family's name. No one can mess with him going forward, as Shengnan and Xu travel together. He's surprised to learn she has a pretty girly side to her too when it comes to certain things. Eventually, they're found by the generals of Zhenbei and Huangfu armies along with their soldiers. Bowing down to Shengnan, they express their joy at her being alive and healthy after her disappearance. Telling them to relax, Shengnan states that Xu, her fiancé, is to thank for her safety. Though shocked at the sudden declaration of a fiancé, all the soldiers bow to Xu Fei in thanks. Xu Fei simply waves at them and introduces himself as a half-doctor. The next day, Xu is seated in a carriage while speaking to one of the generals who is riding a horse. He introduces himself as Huang Qi and questions how in the world Xu managed to win Shengnan's heart, while Xu tries to boast about his power and personality. Huang sees through it quite fast. The man calls Xu out over not even being able to ride a horse. His pride hurt, Xu decides to mount a horse to prove him wrong. Unfortunately, he can't ride the animal for his life. Huang Qi can understand why his Marquess would choose a man this weak. After all, she's one of the top 3 martial artists in this whole world. Shengnan comes up to Huang Qi and Xu Fei. She tells her general that Xu actually survived being attacked by her. Technically not a lie, but hardly the full truth. This satisfies Huang, who apologizes for doubting Xu Fei's capabilities. When they finally arrive in the Huangfu family's lands, Xu Fei is embarrassed by how far the rumors of his weakness have spread, wanting to prove himself capable of at least something. He asks Shengnan to help him learn horse riding. Meanwhile, a man who holds a marriage contract with Shengnan, the crown prince, is seething in anger at recent developments. Back with Shengnan and Xu Fei, she tells her fiancé to ignore what others say. None of it matters as long as she sticks by him. When they reach her home, she asks Huang Qi to show Xu around and leaves for an important task. Huang Qi answers Xu's question about how busy she is. Shengnan has to deal with all sorts of responsibilities as a marquess. On top of that, the recent attack on her was likely an inside job, so now she has to investigate that as well. As a result, she's rarely ever home. home, taking Xu to his chambers. Wang introduces him to the huge staff of servants under the Huangfu family's employment. That night, Xu Fei sits in his private bath, thinking on the hostility shown to him by the Huangfu family's servants. As he does this, a woman enters his bath. Claiming to be a slave girl here to rub his back, she joins Xu despite his embarrassment. When Xu refuses to let the girl do anything inappropriate, she pulls a move that shocks him. Yelling out at the top of her lungs, she screams that Xu Fei is trying to violate her. The servants of the Huangfu family are quick to rush into the bath, disgusted by what they think Xu is doing, not even giving him a chance to explain. They decide he's guilty. They are all furious that a man chosen by their marquis would betray her in such a manner. They imprison Xu in the woods outside, so they can have Shangnan decide his final punishment herself when she returns. There, Xu despairs at being set up the way he has been. Unable to find a way out because of the iron bars and guards outside, he lays on a stack of hay as he drifts off to sleep, a same golden light from his first meeting with Shangnan shines around Xu. The end, for now. Check out this next Manhwa recap appearing on screen right now.